Okay, this next couple of minutes is not going to be for the sensitive people. Is not is obviously is going to be a lot of women that's going to disagree with what I say about this. But here we have the title. It says comedian Miss Pat had 2 kids at 15 by a married man who had 22 kids. Okay. Now we're going to have a woman that's going to commentate on this, and she is going to dispute the title of this, in that the person that made this title is victim blaming, right? Well, let's take a listen. And before I give my opinion, there's going to be a comment that I'm going to highlight. In the comment section, there's a comment that I'm going to highlight real quick. So let's take a listen to this video.
Comedian Miss Pat had 2 kids at 15 by a married man who has 22 kids. Now, that's the main title. Now, and subtitle here is say, Comedian Miss Pat recently spoke with Vlad TV when she revealed she had 2 children by the age of 15 by an adult man who she later found out was married. Unidentified man has 22 kids. So let me go this title up a little bit. Comedian Miss Pat opens up about SA and being groomed at the age of 15, ending up having 2 children by a married man who hid his marriage and continued to groom and take advantage of her. That's the title. Let's stop villainizing victims, because how you even come up with this? I don't like y'all way of media. Comedian Miss Pat had
Okay, that's her opinion. That's her opinion. Oh, what's her name? Randy Rosario. That I be seeing some of her videos, but anyway, I want you to see. I'm gonna zoom in on this comment because I know most. I'll say this. I know the dudes will agree with me, but it's hard to talk about in public. But I talk about this all the time because I'm not afraid to talk about this. I want you to see this comment right here. There's gonna be a woman in here, but she's gonna bring this up to make it seem like the men are the villains, right? But I'm gonna take her word for it. Right here, she's gonna say, "Let me highlight this." Ash Shay the Rebel. She says they say most teenage girls are pregnant by grown men. This is according to her. She says they say most teenage girls that get pregnant, they're getting pregnant by grown men, meaning men over 18 years old. Now, I don't know if you guys been paying attention to what I've been saying. I've been saying that. Now, the funny thing is when I say it, people think I'm saying it because I'm victim blaming. I'm just telling you these are the facts. I keep trying to tell people when it's particularly when it's younger women being sexually active. You know what I mean? Most of the times it's not guys with guys their age, especially if they're like younger, meaning if they're under 16 years old. If they're under 16 years old, meaning they're 14, 15, even 13. Say the average, I always give the example, the average 13 sexually active 14-year-old female. The guy that she's being sexually involved with most likely is going to be minimum 4 years older than her. So if she's in middle school, the guy's probably a sophomore in high school, right? These are the things that I just tell me this is what be happening. But when I bring it up, they say I'm a pervert for just bringing it up because I don't know what it is, because I'll just bring it up. I'm like, well, no, this happens. So when I bring it up, they think I'm being a perv, and I'm just like, I'm just telling you what I see. Oh, you're victim blame. I'm like, I didn't victim blame. I'm just telling you this will be happening. She didn't consent. Hey, who am I to say who consented or not? I'm just telling you this is what I be seeing. And what can I do about it? What can I do about it? I'm just telling you what be happening now. She's bringing this up, so she's trying to make it where the men are the predators for hunting down these girls, and I'm not saying they're not. I'm just telling you this is what's happening. This is what be happening, right? Okay, so let's look at the replies. So right here, now here you have this girl. She's going to respond to this girl. She says, "What does that say about these men scouting for teens?" And she doesn't even realize she's actually trying to make men look bad. But here you had Kiwi the beauty. She got defensive real quick. And Shay the Rebel's going to say, only thing stopping them is the law, and blah, 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 blah. She goes, you can look it up if you don't believe me. Wow. So apparently, according to Nailed by P Cakes, because I used to just say this without the statistics. I didn't know this the official statistics, but according to her, 70% of pregnant teens, the father is over 20 years old. Yo, you can't make this stuff up. Now they're gonna make it like, oh, these men are sick and all this stuff. And, hey guys, just to let you know, America has, in terms of when it comes to the age of consent, America's high up there with the age of consent, with it being 18. In most parts of the world, it's like the minimum age of consent will blow your mind. I don't even want to bring up the countries. Like the minimum age of consent will blow your mind. Like I always take, for example, because Americans live in a bubble. Like I'm talking about all Americans. I'm not talking about just Black Americans. I'm talking about white Americans, all like Americans in general, because we grow up here. We just think, okay, age of consent is this, or culture should just be this. You know what I mean? Like they don't understand how the world works. Now, fortunately, because I end up getting cultured by accident because my sport is soccer, right? Football worldwide, right? So you end up learning these things just by accident, right? I know all this stuff about Brazil really because I love Brazilians when they play football, the men and women that play it, right? So I always bring this example up. When in Brazil, there was an incident that happened in Brazil, I think 7 years ago, or 5 years ago. I don't remember. I was in college when this happened. I think this had. I think I don't remember, but it's not too long ago. It was before. I would say it was before 2020 or 2019. An incident occurred in Brazil where it was a 26-year-old janitor that had what was her age of what was her age? It was a 16-year-old or a 15-year-old. What's this? I think she was 16. It was a 16-year-old or 15-year-old girl. Let me see. I think it was a 16-year-old girl. She died of a heart attack after being sexually involved with a 26-year-old male janitor, right? And I was making jokes about it on World Star, right? But I was surprised that a lot of people didn't understand. Like the age of consent in Brazil is like 14. If I'm not mistaken, it's like 14 or 15 years old is the age of consent in Brazil. And I'm like, I'm like, the girl's 16 or 15. I'm like, that's the in Brazil, that's the age of consent. Right. But I was surprised because I'm just so used to like just following worldwide news. I'll be watching BBC News. I'll be watching the news in Africa, the various African channels. Right. I follow a lot. I like, even though the Daily Mail is an awful news source, but I still follow it. Right. The Sun, a terrible newspaper as well, right? I try to follow worldwide, things, and because you get a different perspective on life and all this stuff, right? The Guardian, right? I was just really surprised because I was just so desensitized that to people not knowing, like, the age of consent is just different in many countries. I know, like, I forgot which country in Africa. Like, there's a country in Africa. I don't remember the which one it was. I don't want to say the wrong one, but there's like a country in Africa where the age of consent is like 13 or 12 or something crazy like that. I was like, what? That is beyond wild, in my opinion. But I'm just telling. These are how these countries are. So Americans, we need to kind of get out that bubble. You know what I mean? Anyways, you see how the comment section is going, though, right? He said, "Isn't that sick? Let them lower the age of consent, and you will see more open pedos. It makes me sick how some of these men won't date women their own age, but want to call young girls fast. So if you're a grown man going after a teen, does it make him slow? I think so." A girl goes, met a girl who was in a middle school when I was a freshman, pregnant at 14, 15 years old by a 21-year-old. No one cared. He was more than 5 years older than her. Okay. Somebody said, where's the parents? Because he would have had to see me. Well, that's the thing, especially when you're dealing with, Black kids in certain neighborhoods. You're only dealing with a mom, a mammy, a single mammy, really. So that's a whole other story for another time. Did you guys see that video when it was like a guy said that he had a interview with a pedophile in jail, and he says like the pedophiles, they go after they literally go after kids that have no male protection. Right, and that's wild. That's wild work. That's crazy work right there. He's basically telling you guys like, oh yeah, we go after the most vulnerable kids, and the most vulnerable kids are the ones that are raised by single mammies. That's basically what he said. But people, they just kind of wanted to gloss over that. But that's a whole other story for another day. Let me see. I asked her that before. They didn't mind it, especially after they found out she was pregnant. I know my mother would have lost it if that was me. I wanted to see something, because it was a black dude in one of the comment section that called one of these broads out for being a hypocrite. So right here, when we talk about comedian Miss Pat, she had 2 kids at 15 by a man.
Had 2 kids at 15 by
a married man who had 22 kids. Look, in my experience, right? In my experience with dealing with something like this, people might disagree with me, but I don't see her as a victim here. And you'd be like, what? I don't. There's too many young ladies. When I was in high school, I would talk to them. Other young boys with their age would talk to them, and they would find themselves in situations like this. And you ask them like, yo, are you sure you know what you're doing? Like, that guy's like, are you sure that guy? And they will be mad at you for questioning them about it. Not only that, they would brag about the older men that they were dating and how the boys her age are not at her level. But she couldn't consent. She's at 15. I'm like, oh, I mean, hey, man. I'm sorry, man. Actions speak louder than words. And when it comes to just my observations, just in life, you'll have women like this. They'll be 14, 15 years old, and they will seek out older dudes. They will seek out guys over 18 years old. They will seek out these guys. They will go to these bars with fake IDs. I mean, just the fact, just the case that you have a fake ID, I already know what kind of time you're on. I can't really look at you as a victim, but you can, if you're a woman, if you're a girl and you want to talk about predators this and pedos this and all this stuff, but you had a fake ID, you can recall a time where you had a fake ID in high school. I can't take what you had to say about this stuff seriously. Just that, I'm sorry, only because there's actual victims out here, like actual victims out here, where they were in a situation where they couldn't do nothing to protect themselves, but you were literally seeking out these type of people. I'm sorry, with your actions, I can't take it seriously. I can't. And there's a reason why. What's the stat? 70% of pregnant teens, the father is over 20. So you think 70%? So those 70% of pregnant teens, you think that whole 70% of those, they're all victims? Really? It's the thing is at 70. If it's at 70%, if it's 70%, the pregnant teens have a father over the age of 20 years old. That's not a victim. It's at 70%. 70%. That doesn't sound like, victim to me. That sounds like, it looks like to me, sexually active female teenagers are seeking out sex with older men. That's what that stat tells me. If it's at 70%, dog. That's 3 out of 4. That's close to 3 out of 4. 3 out of 4, 75%. But how about this? 7 out of 10 teens. 7 out of 10 pregnant teens. The baby father is over 20 years old. 7 out of 10. So out of the 10 out of the 10 teens, 7 of those are pregnant. So out of the 10 pregnant teens, it's basically expected that 7 of those teens, the father is over 20 years old. So that means the rest of the other sexually active teenagers, it's a safe bet to say that the guy that they're messing with is significantly older. It's a good bet. It's a good bet. That doesn't sound like victim. You know what I mean when I say that? I wish I could find that comment though. There was a comment that had me laughing, man. There was a comment that had me laughing. Before I sign off. Let me see. I just because it was a black dude in there. He brought up Virginia versus Loving. I want you guys to look up the Virginia versus Loving case, right? Because basically anytime a black man, that if a black man is over the age of 30 and he's dating any woman under the age of 30 years old himself, if he's dating any girl that's 20 whatever, 20 something, they're going to call him a pedo, right? But one of the guys in the comment section, he brought up with the Virginia versus Loving case, he said nobody ever brings up that the white guy in that case met that girl when she was 11 and he was a grown man. They never bring that stuff up, but they love to champion that case, you know? So that's another thing I wanted to put out there. But like, yeah, just in my opinion, with this case, with comedian Miss Pat having 2 kids at 15 by a married man who had 22 kids, I don't really look at her as a victim in this case. Now, if you look at her background story, I saw another comment that said that when she was younger, when she was around 8, she was taken advantage of by a family member, or like it was like a babysitter. But that's what I keep telling you when you're dealing with single mammies, passing these kids from one person to the next, another to another, with passing it to everybody but the father. These kind of things, you increase those things happening to you. You know what I mean? So, like I said, these things could all be prevented a little bit more with family structure, you know. But when it comes to this specific case, though, you know, having 2 kids at 15 by a married dude, I mean, at what point, when do we start holding the young ladies accountable on that? That, you know, if people might disagree with me on that, I get it, but I'm just saying, man, when I was in high school, talk to the, if you know a girl right now that's on that kind of time, talk to her and see if you can try to convince her to stop doing what she's doing. You know what I mean? That's all I can say in my defense.